Okay, we're going to take a little bit of a blast to the past here. How many of you are fans of I Love Lucy? How many of you have seen this show? Okay, this is one of my absolute favorites, except for Vitamina Vitamin. I just love this show. And it relates to what we're going to talk about today. Because if you remember, the ladies decided that they wanted a job. So they got a job in a candy factory, and they walk in, and it looks like they've got this wonderful boss, and she teaches them how to slowly wrap each piece of candy as it goes by on the conveyor belt. They're doing really well, and she heads out warning them just as she leaves, well, by the way, if you let one piece slip by you without getting wrapped, you're going to be fired. So they're la-di-da, doing it slowly, slowly, slowly. After a few minutes, the conveyor stops. They hear their boss come in. She is so pleased with their work. Wonderful. He screams out to the person behind the wall, speed it up a little. Well, all of a sudden, the candy starts coming faster and faster and faster, and they can barely keep up. And they're wrapping it as quickly as they possibly can. And some of it's getting by, and they're grabbing it, and they're pulling it back, and it stops again, and they hear their boss coming, and there's all this unwrapped candy sitting in front of them, and they don't know what to do, so they start shoving it in their shirts and in their hats and in their mouths, because they're going to get fired. So she comes in, and she doesn't see any candy that is not unwrapped, and she thinks that they're doing a fantastic job, despite the chipmunk cheeks that they've got going there, yells, speed it up, and leaves, and it comes even faster. Now, isn't that just like the way that information has gotten in our society in the last 5 or 6 years? And maybe if you've been in this for a while, at the beginning you thought you could keep up with it. You had a few RSS feeds. You know, maybe you checked your Facebook or your MySpace once a week or something like that. But lately it's just been coming faster and faster and faster. And it's really hard to keep up with. And we're not really sure. Sometimes we feel exactly like Lucy and Ethel. How are we going to keep up with all of this? So that's what we're going to talk about today. In 2008, a Google engineer estimated that there were 1 trillion pages on the internet. Imagine for just a minute what that number must be. But that's not the worst of it. 2010, there were 95 trillion email messages sent. There are 250 billion emails sent every day. 92,000 tweets per day. Do any of you remember when people were saying that Twitter was a fad and it was going to go away? Not so much, right? 2.5 billion photos uploaded to Facebook every single day. 14 million blogs on WordPress. And they're predicting that by 2013, the quantity of information on the internet is going to double roughly every 72 hours. So, we don't have a choice about whether or not we do content strategy. The only question is, how well are we going to do it? So we're going to cover that today, and this is our high-level agenda. First of all, we're going to talk about what is content strategy. Next, why is it important? Third, and most important, how are we going to get it done? Before we get into the plan for doing that, the 5-step plan that I'm going to share with you, I'm going to share some trends that you're going to want to be aware of, because things are changing very rapidly. This session is not going to be about content marketing. Content marketing is the tactic for content strategy. It's not going to be about copywriting, although you do need good copywriters to engage in content strategy. It's not going to be about social media, although your content strategy will touch that. And it's not going to be about SEO. Okay, so what is it? The Oxford English Dictionary says that strategy is the art of a commander-in-chief. The art of directing something larger movements within the operations of a campaign. Aaron Copesan, who is a well-known content strategist, says, it's not enough to think tactically about content. We have to look beyond individual battles and ensure that the whole array works together to meet a set of overarching goals. Okay, the first concept that I want to emphasize is that your content is an asset. I want you to begin to think about it as a business or ministry asset. It's like stock. It's like cash. It's like your employees' knowledge. In the Elements of User Experience, Jesse Garrett says, the single most important thing most websites can offer their users is content that those users will find valuable. And that includes all channels. So what do you think of when you think of web content? I've got a few things that are popping up there on the screen for you. Am I missing anything? Have you thought of content that broadly before? Or are you still, as you enter here, thinking of it as just text on a page? But no, it really is all of these things. All of these things and more. Okay, content doesn't exist in a vacuum. Someone needs to create it. This is that person sitting right there. She has questions. Content strategy answers those questions. Okay, so what does content strategy look like? First of all, I want to share with you one of the best books that I've ever read. Really, really recommend you pick a copy of this up. It's called Business Model Generation. And the author did not write it specifically for topics like content strategy, but he gives you 9 building blocks for any type of business model you want to create. And I've taken this business model and adapted it to our clients' ministries. And you can also adapt it to your thinking about content strategy. And this is what that might look like. The most important thing is that center section right there where it says value proposition. So as we're talking today, I want you to be thinking, what is the value proposition of your content? What value does it bring your visitor? Do you bring spiritual growth? Is it a closer relationship with God? Are you growing the kingdom? Are you equipping leaders? Your content is going to bring value to the users. Otherwise, there's no reason to have it there. And then all of the other surrounding building blocks are going to support that value proposition. You're going to be thinking about your audience, your channels, your activities, your partners, your resources, your costs, but also your revenue streams. And once you can begin to map those out, it gives you a little bit easier direction for where you want to go with it. Okay, so that's what. Now let's talk about why this is important. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because, believe it or not, most people are skeptical at first about doing content strategy. It's really hard to justify the spend in their minds. So why is it important? Why can't we just scrape the content off of some of our other materials and drop it onto the site? The other thing is sometimes it's just confusing to think about. I was talking to several of you before this session, and a couple of you mentioned to me, we have so much content, I don't know where to start. We are saying so many things, I don't know what messages are the most important. And so it's tempting to just keep moving forward and hope everything will work out okay in the end, right? But hope is not a strategy. So let me show you some examples. This is one of my favorite websites. Not. No, not at all. How do you feel when you look at this website? Okay, I get overwhelmed. I go back to it regularly every time I talk about content strategy just to see if it's still as bad as it was a few months ago, and it's always still as bad as it was a few months ago. And every time I look at it, I think, okay, well, maybe if I click on one of the navigation links, it'll get better. Does it? No, it's worse. It's not any better. It's not any easier to figure out what's most important. It's not any easier to figure out what you're supposed to do. So this is not what we want. So let's compare that to this. This is the Denver Seminary website. It's one of my favorite websites. There's a ton of really good content on it. There is as much content on this website and for this organization as there was for the one that I just showed you. But do you see how much better it's organized? How much easier it is for you to figure out what you're supposed to do next and where you're supposed to go to find the information that you need. Here's another example. This is another insurance company. Okay? You get it right away. You know exactly what they have to offer. There's a lot of details in the major sections, but they don't overwhelm you with it all at the beginning. So think just for a minute about your own websites. Get a picture of it in your mind. Is it more like this or more like this? If it's more like this, I can guarantee you that the effort that you're going to put into content strategy is going to be worth it. And let me introduce you to one of my favorite laws. It's called Lerman's Law of Technology. And it says any technical problem can be overcome given enough time and money. Lerman's corollary says you are never given enough time and money, right? So what are we going to do about this? So I just want to get 2 thoughts in your mind about the time and the money. Okay, first of all, content strategy is going to save you money. Now, I know that's counterintuitive. Content strategy can be a big spend. It requires resources and it requires time. But it's cheaper in the long run because if you plan for your content at the beginning, you are going to avoid making expensive mistakes that you're going to have to fix later on. And one of those expensive mistakes can be in your information architecture because once you get that hard-coded in, it costs a lot of money to go back and change it. Whereas if you think about your content ahead of time, you'll avoid making those kinds of mistakes. The other is that content strategy saves time. So Murphy's Law, right, says there's never enough time to do it right, but there's always enough time to do it over. Now, in our experience, we've been doing websites for a number of years now. Lack of planning for content equals project delay or late nights every single time. And what we have found is that if somebody is going to get fired if the website doesn't launch on time, we're getting emails at 2 and 3 in the morning in the days before the site launches, trying to get everything up. If they're not going to get fired, well, then guess what? The project is delayed. So the truth is that people really do underestimate the size of the job. And the reason that we tend to underestimate it is we think things like, well, we pretty much already know what we're going to say, right? Or we already have most of it written in all of our other marketing materials. Or how long can it take to write an article? How long can it really take to shoot a video, right? So late content, I'm going to repeat it, is one of the most common reasons for missed launch deadlines and project delays. In fact, I was very pleased to read just the other day, in a list apart, an article called Content Delay Syndrome. And I want to read you a quote from that article that really resonates. It's by Rachel Levington of Razorfish, and she says, "In the vast majority of website projects I have managed in my 10 years in the industry, content is often the last thing to be considered and almost always the last thing to be delivered. We'll spend hours, weeks, even months doing user scenarios, sitemaps, wireframes, designs, schemas, and specifications, but content? It is a disrespected line item in a schedule. Final content delivered. It is the perennial cause of delay and the stuff of myth. I once shelved a project for 3 years while the client wrote his content. It's a malaise that needs fixing and needs fixing fast." And I really resonated with that because even we at 5Q right now have a website that's been sitting around for about 2 years, waiting for the owner of that site to get the content on it so that we can launch it. So it pays to think about this ahead of time. It's going to cost a little bit up front, but it's going to pay off in the long run. And what we really need is a shift in our thinking. From unplanned to strategic, from expense to asset, from one-off to multi-channel. We're going to talk more about multi-channel in a minute. But the most important reason is right here. The most important reason is that your visitors care about your content. Your visitors are important. They care. When you put attention to your content, it shows that you care about your visitor. Content strategy keeps the needs of the user front and center. Okay, how will it get done? Before we get into the nitty-gritty of the how, I want to take just a few minutes to cover some trends that I believe you absolutely need to know about. We'll go through them rather quickly. Unless you are very interested, in which case you should feel free to put up your hand or interrupt and we can stop for a few minutes and talk about it. And these are some of the sources that I used. Okay, so do traditional websites have one foot in the grave? If you believe this chart, they do. What this shows is the rapid increase of smartphones and tablet sales compared to personal computer sales. And it's projected to only get bigger. It's a lot of content. The number of Americans who own a tablet reader has jumped to 29% in January of 2012. 1/3 of Americans. So what is the size of the mobile market? 108 billion smartphones. These people can access your content at any time of the day, every day. By 2014, mobile internet is expected to take over desktop internet usage. If you want to reach people with the gospel, you have to consider how to deliver your content on the go. 86% of mobile internet users are using their devices while watching television. So this has given rise to the phenomenon known as the internet and the couch. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in just a few minutes. As you can see as this scrolls up, there are dozens and dozens of ways that people are tracking internet use and mobile use. All right, the tablet and the couch. How many of you have tablets? How many of you curl up on your sofa at night, maybe while the rest of the family's doing something, you've got your tablet out? Yeah, somebody says something on TV, you're not sure if you believe it, so you look it up, right? It's exactly right. Or maybe even in church, like my husband does. He has it open, he's got his Bible open, the pastor says something he's not sure is right. He looks it up on the internet. Okay? So the pastor's opinion is validated right there. And I can guarantee that that happens with you too. So people just love the hands-on features, young and old, okay? They love to read on their tablets. Another phrase that you'll hear often is the rise of the second screen. People multitasking on their tablets while doing other things, particularly watching TV. So it's important to remember with this particular device that the best content presentation is a native experience. And there are a lot of inexpensive ways of doing that. We're not going to talk about those today, but do keep in mind that the very best way that people can interact with your content on a tablet is going to be with a native app. So you'll want to have that in your tool set, in your arsenal. All right, next trend is a trend that's called CARS. This comes from Forrester Research, and it's an acronym, meaning that content direction is going 4 ways. Customized by the end user, that's the C. I'm going to talk about each one of these a little bit more depth. Aggregated at the point of use, relevant to the needs of the moment, and social as a rule. So let's take a look at how that's playing out. Any of you ever use Zeet? I love this application. Love it. The reason that this application wins is because it takes all of those trillions of pages that I was telling you about, and it decides for you, based on your use and what you tell it, what to present to you. It brings it down into something that you can make sense of. It's customized by the end user. Okay? And this is what it looks like. First of all, you get a very rich experience, very easy to read. Whatever you like, you get to see more of it. It's all about you. And then social sharing is made very easy, faster than ever. So right there, we've got our CARS that Forrester Research is telling us about. And I just thought I'd just throw this in for fun. This is what social as a rule would look like in the Bible if they had had tablets and phones in the Bible. So if any of you would like to have this image afterwards for teaching some of your Bible classes, I'm sure it's all been verified and it's completely accurate information. Getting back to social as a rule, right now, if Facebook were a country, it would be the world's 3rd largest. This is why making your content easily able to be shared on social networks is so critical. You have to be thinking about this as part of your content strategy. Okay, we're all digital explorers, right? We look for ratings, reviews. You do that, don't you? Videos, you want product details before you buy, right? You want to know what other people are interested in, talking about, and you want to be part of the conversation. Your content, you need to be thinking about your content with all of those variables in mind. Is it going to give people the information that they want at the time that they want it? Is it going to help them feel connected and like they're part of the conversation? Okay, in this next section, I am indebted, let's see, where did I put this here? See if I can find her name. Can't find her name, I'll tell you later. There is a fantastic report out called Internet Trends, and I have the link, and I'll give it to you. And some of these pages come right from that. It has every single detail of everything you might ever want to know about what's going on with the internet. But here are some of the highlights. These are the things that are going to affect you as you plan for your content. First of all, she talks about the reimagination of books, then and now. If Wikipedia were a book, it would take you 123 years to read it. Isn't that stunning? I mean, can you even imagine what that would be like? And you don't know about that because it's on the internet and you only interact with 1 or 2 pages at a time sometimes. Magazines to things like Flipboard and Zeet, which we just talked about. How many of you still use the yellow pages frequently? Daily basis, you pick out your yellow pages, right? You looking for something? Oh, come on. Everybody, no, of course you don't, right? It's all about what you can find online. It's all about Yelp and other apps like that. Do you know that 90% of customers trust peer recommendations? If you are not making it possible for your audience to recommend your content, your services, your ministry, you're losing a whole batch of trust there. People trust their peer recommendations. Make it possible for people to recommend your content. Well, and this should not be a surprise to anybody here in this room, the reimagination of education. I know that some people at this conference are involved with online learning. Is there anybody in this room that's specifically involved with online learning? Okay, so you know all about this. Completely different world. It's important because 50% of the world's population is under 30 years old. Those are the people that you're educating, the vast majority of them. Kindergartners are learning on iPads. My kids, Generation Y and Z, email is so 2006. We can't get a hold of our kids on email. Email is for getting hold of the parents. Text messaging or Facebook is for getting hold of the kids. I even read that some universities have stopped distributing email accounts. Doesn't look like Biola's there yet, but some universities have. Last trend I want to put in front of you is responsive design. That is where you structure your website so that it automatically resizes to the size of the screen that the visitor is using. The reason that's relevant to content is because it won't work for you if you have not prioritized your content messages before you start your responsive design. What is the most important thing? What is the second most important thing? And so on. Because those lower important things are going to drop off as the screen size falls. And here's an example. The Boston Globe does a very, very good job with responsive design. So because of that, the structure is not going to be only hierarchical, but it's also going to be relational. A lot less neat and tidy. Okay, so here's an image that I put together to kind of try to show you how this all interacts. I hope it isn't more confusing than it needs to be. But right there in the center, that bullseye is your content. And then it goes out to the edges in all of the different ways that you can distribute that content and the devices that you can distribute it on. Okay, now what? Let's just summarize here. We've already talked about what it is, why it's important, and I've showed you some trends. Now we're going to dive into how we're going to do it. And I'm going to give you a 5-step plan with lots of tools and examples. I don't want you to worry that you're going to miss anything. We will give you an opportunity to get every single one of these at the end of the session, okay? Then I want you to be ready also because we're going to do a little bit of exploring ourselves here in just a few minutes after we go through some of these things. Got a couple of ideas of things for you to try. All right, so the first step is discover. And what I mean by that is you need to discover, first of all, what it is your users want, and second, what are your own ministry objectives. You would be surprised how many times I talk to ministries and they have not given the first thought to what they want to do. They just want a website. They don't know what they want to do with it. They don't know what they want to feature. So if you're in that situation, that's one of the first things you need to do is what are my top goals, okay? But it's not all about you. It's about the people that come to your website. And if you don't know what their top goals either, you're not going to be able to be successful. So you need to ask yourself, who am I trying to reach? Not generally, not the world for Jesus. Who am I trying to reach exactly? And you need to be able to describe that person. And the tool that we're going to share with you is called a persona. This is a very common tool. I'm sure that many of you are familiar with it, but I'd like you to take just a quick second because I did create one that I thought would be useful for people in this room. If you're at a church, it is very likely you have a woman like Kimberly who attends your church. She works part-time, she's got a couple of kids, she's trying to balance a lot of different things. And there's things that she wants by being church and by being part of your faith community. And if you don't think about those things, then you're not going to be addressing her issues. And really what she wants is to find ways to grow spiritually and connect at church that don't take her away from her family for long periods of time. How do I know that? That was me. I was one of those, really struggling with, okay, I've got to get to work, but they don't start summer camp until 9 a.m. and I'm supposed to be at work at 8, and they don't have any pre-care. And I really can't find out the details for how I could connect with someone who might be able to pick my daughter up and take her home. So if you're nodding, are you that person? You understand, right? So if the owner of that website would think about that and would give you that information, wouldn't that make your life easier? It would, absolutely, I've been there. So those of you who have those kinds of websites, how do you do that? Well, first of all, let's take a little bit of, do some scenario planning here. And this is real simple. Again, we're going to give you this. We're going to work on this a little bit later. You just think about maybe a couple of the different scenarios that that persona might be encountering. What's her state of mind, or his? Very important. If they're hurried and annoyed, you're going to have that information right in front of their eyeballs. They're not going to go looking for it. Where if they're just curious, unhurried, thoughtful, maybe sitting on their couch with their iPad, curled up next to their kid, you're going to have a little bit more time to get them the information they need. So once you've thought through that, then obviously your content follows right from that. If somebody's hurried and their kid hasn't told them till the day before that the registration deadline is, and you've got that link right front and center where they can go, you have met their needs. Okay? Your content is reaching them. And a phone number if they have questions. Whereas if they have more time, what they want maybe is a list of resources and the ability to search online for those resources. Finally, I know we're not going to talk about SEO today, but I did want to include one thing. When you do all of these things that I've just told you with your content, you are going to reap search benefits. And the reason for that is a thing called Panda. Have you heard Panda? Okay, Panda, last year and a half, what Google has been doing is using artificial intelligence to regularly update their algorithm so that their search pages bring back more and more exact results for what the searcher is looking for. Okay, and it skews toward excellent content. And so if you're providing content that is very, very focused on the needs of your user, you are going to reap search benefits from that. All right, next tool that I'm going to show you addresses the issue of what are your goals and what are your users' goals. And this is called an audience model. Okay, and the example that I'm going to show you here is one of our clients. It's Johnny and Friends. What the audience model does is it very specifically says, this is my audience. It names the audience. It says this is the audience's goals, lists the audience's goals. It says these are my goals. And so we did a fairly extensive audience model for Johnny and Friends, and do you know why? It's a website that was catering to the needs of the disabled. And so if we were not thinking about the needs of people who had vision impairments, the needs of people who had hearing impairments, the needs of people who had motor difficulties, particularly the needs of the cognitively impaired, we would not be producing the content that the visitors to that website needed or that would allow the ministry to achieve its goals. If they have a section that's geared toward people with a first grade reading level and it's got 8th grade reading material on it, it's not going to minister to them. It's not going to reach them. So every single decision that we made for this website, everything from what some of the technical features to employ, were based on the decisions and the information that we got out of thinking through the needs of the audience. And I'll just show you just the top part of that. So their primary audience, you can see, was individuals with disabilities. Then right down there shows you Johnny and Friends' top 3 goals. And then what the top 3 goals of the people with disabilities would be. So things like resources, help answers, encouragement and support, others like them to interact with. What that means is we have to have some way of creating community, and that is also going to affect our content. I'm going to show you another one. This is we used an audience model for this. The main difference is this is a mobile website. So we did an audience model for specifically a mobile website. Okay, and this is what it looked like. The key audiences, this is for the Bowery Mission in New York City, and the key audiences that they wanted to reach were donors, volunteers, potential volunteers, advocates for the homeless, and New York City residents. So we addressed the needs of all of those people. Okay, so New Yorkers are busy walking around using their mobile devices. We knew we had their attention for maybe 3 to 5 minutes. The minute they got their Starbucks coffee, the minute their subway door opened, we were going to be losing them. So we had to make sure that whatever we did reached them in that amount of time. What the Bowery wanted was to get the right content to them in that short period of time, to make it seamless to make donations. Because if you've just got 3 minutes to get a donation from somebody, you don't want to make it difficult on them. And so what we did is we streamlined the donation page so that it could be done very quickly and easily. The user's needs, the organization's needs, completely informed the type of donation page that we created for them. And then we created content-specific pages to the people that we knew they wanted to reach. So that would be people who wanted to volunteer, people who were advocates of the homeless that we wanted them to know about it, or perhaps people who knew someone that needed the help that the Bowery would offer. And then also we wanted to promote their fundraising events to just general people in New York who might happen to see a billboard walking along and want to draw it up on their cell phone. They could find out about it. Okay, next step is we're going to analyze. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to be taking a look at the content here, and you're going to have to find it. We're going to have to find it, and we're going to catalog it. Now, I can't find it for you, but I can give you a really good tool for keeping track of it and explain to you how we go about doing that. So, I mean, you're going to have to be thinking about that. So where is it? Maybe it's in books that have been written. That would be easy to find. Maybe it's in somebody's head, a little bit harder. You can tie them down, get it out. Maybe it's on a computer somewhere. Or it may be that nobody really knows where it is, but you do need to find it. When you find it, we're going to put it in the incredible spreadsheet. And I call it the incredible spreadsheet because it is a spreadsheet that you can take and do each of the 4 steps that I'm going to be talking to you about. And the spreadsheet just kind of gets a little bit bigger and has a little bit more information on it each time you go through. But it is very organized and it's not at all difficult to use. And we keep ours in Google Docs because it's collaborative. And that's what I'm going to recommend you do too. We'll give you the template, you just copy it into Google Docs, and then anybody anywhere can get in there. Okay, so what are we going to do? We're going to do a content inventory where we list all the content on the site. We're going to do a content audit where we assess it. We say this is good, this is wonderful, this is awful, this sucks, we've got to get rid of it. Then we say, okay, what's missing? What do we need? And then finally we're going to map the messages to the goals, which is the strategy. Okay, so this is the inventory part of it. You're going to see right down here, I've got the tab. And up at the top, the first section is for inventorying and the second section is for auditing. So in column D, I just made a note, column D, E, and I, of the types of things there that we're talking about. So there's an opportunity here for you to designate which platform or which device that content is going to be published on. And you can also say, okay, what type of content it's going to be. Then there is a target length because, for example, if you are putting something on Twitter, you're limited to the number of characters. And so the person who's creating the content needs to know about this. This is a tactical tool. This is an in-the-weeds tool. This is something that you can take, and whoever needs to be doing this on your site, once they start it, it's theirs. They don't have to go back. They don't have to redo it. It's all there. They can pull it up at any time and begin working on whatever it is they need to do next. And then the last thing we do is we audit it. And we take a look and we say, okay, what's the quality? How many people have been visiting there? When was it last updated? An example for one of our clients when we did this was Revive Our Hearts. They have an enormous site. And 6 months or so ago when we were migrating all the content, we were bringing it over from several different sites. And so we had to have a content inventory and we had to have a way of keeping track of it. And so what we did is we created it and then we went in and their people shared it with us and they would just go in and they would reprioritize or they would draw lines through things that they felt like they didn't need anymore. They would rate it. They would say, this is really fantastic. This is really bad. The other thing with this is that you can customize it. For example, this was a complex site, so we made programming notes because sometimes your content affects what you need to do with your programming. So this is a tool that you can take and that you can use and you can adapt it. And the site launched on time and they were happy with it and we got all the content on there that we were supposed to, so the story had a happy ending. All right, strategize. Your core strategy defines how your content is going to help you meet ministry goals. So imagine now you're standing here, this is your ministry. You've got your user standing over there. Really, you're having a conversation with them. You're saying, okay, how do we know what you want and where you want to find it? Have to ask that question over and over again. And then you think about yourself too, okay? You're on the internet. How do you find interesting information? How do you look for what you want? What questions do you have? What problems are you trying to solve? Put yourself in the shoes of your visitor and ask yourself if the content on your site is informative, useful, and relevant. Reason for that is we're going to say, okay, now where are the gaps? And we're going to try to bridge those gaps. Surprise, surprise, the tool we do that with is called a gap analysis. And basically what you're doing here, again, this is really simple. I'm going to show you right down here. This is the second tab on my monster spreadsheet, my Incredible Hulk spreadsheet. And you just catalog what your visitors' questions are, what the answer is, then go find the page on your website that provides that answer. You can compare the question with the page, and all of a sudden, you are going to see from your visitor's eyes what's missing. So, how much does it cost to take an evening class? All right, you know the answer. There's the URL up there. But you get up there and there's no upcoming events. Well, what if the person wants to come see a class? What if they want to attend an orientation meeting? How are they going to find out about it? So that would be a nice little box to put on the side. Say, by the way, you're here. You want to know how much an evening class costs? I bet you're interested. Here is where you can come find out in person. And then you just assign it to somebody and it gets done. Well, most of the time, right? All right. Other thing I want you to think about is your messaging hierarchy. And this is pretty simple. You've got your call to action. That's your first most important thing. What do you want the person to do? What do they do next? That has to be obvious. It can't be hidden. If it's not there, your web pages are not going to be successful. Then your primary message answers the question, why should I do that? And your secondary messages say who, how, when, and how much is this going to cost me. And we're going to work with this in just a minute. So I know I'm going fast. Don't worry, you will get all of this information. The other thing we use is the strategy spreadsheet. This is where now you understand what your messages are. This is where you can begin to map your messages to your goals. And I'm going to scroll through here. This slide was not big enough for me to show you. This is actually a really long spreadsheet, but there's a spot for you to catalog everything that you want to do. So let's just take a quick look. So there's your marketing part. There's where you can say, okay, that's my key message. These are the other messages. This is the call to action. This is the tone that I want it to take. This is how long it needs to be. Okay, this is the creative direction, the art direction. Here are the sources. Here's the related content. So if you have somebody in your ministry, or even if it's just you, this is another one of those things that you can customize. You can get rid of any one of those columns that doesn't meet your needs. But what you have then, you won't lose track. You don't have to remember anymore. You can just pull the spreadsheet up and you know what needs to be done next. All right, I want to talk to you for just a minute about one of my favorite case studies. This is the Atlantic. I was talking to you a couple of you about it earlier. They are, I'm going to read you a couple of things here. They are a 153-year-old magazine. All right. They, after losing money for years and years and years and years, all of a sudden in 2010, they passed over into the black, and they did it with style. And nobody expected them to do it. Everybody expected them just to kind of die on the vine like so many news organizations have done. And what they did is, I said what this meant more than anything else was forcing one of the nation's oldest magazines to stop thinking of itself as a printed product. When they were able to make that mental shift to stop thinking of themselves as a printed product, everything changed for them. They took down the paywall between their print advertising and their digital advertising. They began to hire specifically to achieve success. They hired talented writers, they hired well-known writers, they hired writers with a following. Because why? Because they knew that success online was going to depend on getting eyeballs on that page. They couldn't just have 1,000, 2,000 people a day. They needed hundreds of thousands of people a day if they were going to make money from their advertising. And so they hired the people to do it. All of this was part of their strategy, and all of it fit together. Yeah, I said before they started doing this, the traffic to the site was 3 million visitors. Afterwards, they began getting nearly 1 million unique monthly visitors to the site because they decided that they were going to think of it from a content perspective first. Everything else fell into that. The technology fell into that. Everything else fell into what do we want to do with our content to get our visitors. The other thing that I was mentioning to a couple of you, I just read this article a week ago. The Atlantic doesn't care about SEO anymore. There are companies that spend thousands of dollars a month on SEO because it's cheaper than advertising. Atlantic doesn't care. Do you know why? They get the majority of their visitors now to their website from social media. So their writers aren't thinking keyword phrases anymore at all. Their writers are thinking, how do I spin this so it goes viral? Okay, how do I spin it so it goes viral? So that does have applications to you. I mean, you're not going to be going for those 1 million visitors a month, but you know, and the people in your ministry know what is going to resonate with the friends and the acquaintance of your visitors. And if you can begin to think creating your content in a way that is going to hook them, that is going to cause them to share it and to send it to people, right away you're entering that sweet spot that we've been talking about all morning of recommendations and social as a rule. I'm just going to briefly address this one. I don't know, have any of you been to How Stuff Works? Okay, they call themselves the anti-Wikipedia. Their content strategy, they were a great site before they undertook a content strategy. What they wanted to do was to take it to the next level. So content strategy is not just for people that are confused and your site is confusing, like the one that I was showing you. Content strategy is for people that are already doing a great job and they want to do a better job. And so let me just read you a couple of quotes here. He said, first let me say HowStuffWorks.com is a really respected and entrenched brand for its unbiased, opinionated content delivered in an engaging way. He says, at the same time, I really wanted to stretch things. I have really focused on making people feel that they are reading the best content possible on a topic. So right there is a summary of exactly what their content strategy was. They want to be the best content on a topic. That is going to affect every single decision that you make if you want to be the best. It's going to affect how you choose your images. It's going to affect who you hire to create the content. It's going to affect how you present it. It's going to affect the depth. They also look for unique and unusual ways of presenting content. And they started because of wanting to look at content first. They went for the content strategy in a very planned way. All right, get out your devices. Phones, tablets, both, whatever makes you happy. I've been talking for a while. Let's stretch for a minute. Take a deep breath. All right, let's explore this just a little bit more. I would like you to, on whichever device you want to use, go to focusonthefamily.com. Try it on, some of you try it on your phones, some of you try it on your tablets. Maybe you can look over somebody's shoulder if you don't happen to have something. So let's go to the home page first. And we'll take these questions one at a time. Question, can you easily figure out what to do first or where to find what you need? Anybody want to share? How about somebody who's looking at it on your phone?
It's loading slow.
Oh dear, fail.
It's the same as on their main website.
Fail too.
Looks good on a pad.
Okay, good, excellent. Is it easy to read? All right. Okay, visit a section. Pick any section. Is it clear to you in that section what is relevant to your needs or answers your questions? Oh, I'm seeing confused faces.
I know where to donate.
Okay, that's a win. Okay, she knows where to donate. Suppose you don't want to donate. Suppose you want to know how to raise your kids better. Okay? Is there anybody who just loves it, who just is like, this is the easiest thing I've ever done?
It's very busy. I mean, there's a lot of things on it. And I think if I approached it with the thought of what am I going to look for before I went there, I might would have been a little better focused. But right now, it just looks like a lot of different options.
Okay.
Put a lot of time and effort into figuring out exactly what you want.
Okay. How much patience do you have for that?
0.
That's exactly right. All right. See if you can find an article. We'll just take a few minutes here. And the reason I'm asking that is that really the substance of this site, the reason for this site's existence is its articles, the information it brings.
That was pretty easy.
Pardon?
That one was pretty easy to find our.
Okay, and you're on an iPad? Good. So that's a win for them, right?
Share it. One of the questions is, can you share it?
Okay, good. So right now we're about 50-50. It's maybe not the worst thing in the world, but there are some areas where it could really be better, right? Where they could be thinking things through just a little bit better. Okay, last thing I want you to do before we look at another site is go to the Facebook page. I'm just going to ask, do you feel welcome when you go to the Facebook page? Do you feel like you want to be there?
Focus on the Family's Facebook page.
Mm-hmm. There should be a link with the little Facebook. What?
I opened up Facebook and searched for it.
Okay. See, that's not good either.
They have a lot on the homepage.
Carolyn.
Why is it, why?
Well, the first thing loaded for me was an invitation to sign up on Facebook, which was annoying. But when that came up, it looks a little better. But.
Okay, yeah. Okay, and what I'm hearing here is really what we're seeing is just replicated the world over. People's patience with the internet is about 0. They used to say you had 3 seconds to capture somebody's attention. I would bet it's down to 1. Okay, so if you get there and if you have to log in or if there's something that keeps somebody from doing what they want to do, there are 100 other sites that are not going to annoy them. And here I've just showed you some pictures, okay? So this is their main site. People on the iPad said, yeah, you know, this wasn't the worst thing I ever experienced. But people on the iPhones, I bet those of you that were doing this on your phones probably didn't have a very good experience. So what can Focus on the Family do to improve?
Prioritize what they want to communicate.
I would agree with you.
And remember who their audience is.
Mm-hmm.
I've got a question about that.
Yeah.
So one thing I hate when I go to sites.
Like hate? Really hate?
I hate it.
Okay, we got that.
Like the Macrumor site is when they prioritize for me. So I go on my phone, I can't find what I want because they've designed it for a mobile device or it's scaled down for a mobile device. So I can't do what I want to do on it. And I want the whole site on my phone. Can you respond to that?
There probably needs to be a link really where you can see it very easily go to the main website.
Yeah.
Because you would rather have the tiny little print and have everything.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Especially if you're familiar with the main site.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, they need to make that easy for you.
Okay, that's good.
Yeah. Okay. One more. Go to gotandem.com. And go to the home page. Can you easily figure out what to do first or where to find what you need? What are your responses to this home page? Pardon?
Seems pretty good.
Mm-hmm. Why?
Because it tells you right at the top what it's for and how it works.
Okay, good. They don't assume you can read their minds, do they?
It's interesting that about 2/3 of the homepage is no text.
Mm.
It's just a giant image.
Are you on your tablet? Okay, yeah. What else?
Feels more like an invitation.
Pardon?
Feels more like an invitation.
Beautiful. Yes. You want to be welcome on a site, don't you? You want to be embraced, right? Particularly with your ministries, you're reaching people for the gospel. Don't you want people to feel the embrace of the gospel when they come to your site? Let's skip this one. Go to the blog post. Why don't you find a blog post? Is it easy to read? Easy to respond to? Easy to share with others? Not able to find the blog post? How many of you can find right away where the blog post is? Okay. Tablet, you can see it, but not, okay. All right, so there's a flaw, right? Their blog posts are a very large part of their content. And if you're on their site on the phone, you're not going to be able to do it. So my, I guess, point that I want to make out of this, right? What I would really hope that each one of you would do at the end of the session, or actually we'll probably do it before the end, go to your own websites. Go on a phone, go on a tablet, and put yourselves in the shoes of the people that you are trying to reach with the gospel. See if they can do some of the basic things on the site that they need to do to access your content. Okay, final thing, let's visit the Facebook page. Matt, I'm going to want to know right away what you think of this.
Okay, well, first problem is I'm having a hard time finding a Facebook page.
Okay, so you're annoyed already, aren't you?
It's easy to know. I don't know what to do on their page now, their Facebook page. But it seems inviting.
Okay, but you've got a dozen other things you could be doing in the next 10 minutes than trying to figure out what to do on their Facebook page, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. This is what it looks like. Where I'm going to give them kudos is that this is not a true responsive design. It's beautifully engineered so that it doesn't look horrible no matter what device you're looking at it. But you kind of discovered the fly in the ointment is that when you get down to here, no matter how beautifully engineered it is, it still doesn't always give you the information that you want. So the point of this is that you need to think beyond. The design is important, But you need to think beyond it. If it's beautiful, but it doesn't give people what they want, you're still not going to be meeting their needs and they're going to be bouncing. Okay. This last section, this is where it's another one of those sections where we're going to be talking about a lot of tools. We're going to this is how you do things. This is how you create and how you make things. And again, I'll just remind you, you'll have the opportunity to get all of this at the end. All right. So here we're going to be asking ourselves, how does the work get done? Now I want you to be thinking about your ministry. What are your available resources? Remember our business model? Key resources: time, talent, staff, budget. I'm going to guess that if you're working with a ministry, you're feeling pinched in one or more of those areas. And so what we have to do in ministry sometimes is learn how to make compromises. Learn how to prioritize and say, what are the most important things that we need to do with our time? We'll be talking about that. Also, now you need to be thinking about the roles and the responsibilities. All right? How many of you have a content strategist on staff that does nothing but strategize for your content? Okay. Maybe you have a writer? You have a writer? Okay, not too bad. Designer? A couple designers in the room? Project manager maybe? Okay, so where would a content strategist fit? The answer is the content strategist really touches all of the roles that relate to your digital development. I was reading kind of a funny thing. Christina Halverson is kind of the guru of content strategy. She wrote one of the first books about it, and she writes a blog called Brain Traffic. She says she gets people calling her all the time who just hired a content strategist and they don't know what to do with them. And so we're going to talk a little bit about now, you have somebody who's thinking in that role, what are they going to be doing? So you don't have somebody filling space in a desk. You don't know what they're doing. All right, so there's a lot of work that needs to be done, right? Researching, writing, publishing, editing, reviewing, and approving. So how is all of this going to get done? So we're going to give you a couple of tools. And the example that I'm going to use for the next part of this is our own website at 5Q. Because the two tools that I'm going to show you next, we used. We learned a lot. I'm going to tell you it didn't go perfectly. I'm going to tell you we were that company for the last few days. We had people up late getting the content on. But we did jump in and we ate our own dog food. And I can tell you a little bit about how it went for us. So the first tool is a workflow process. You do have to have a process for getting this done. It can't just happen if somebody wakes up in the morning and feels like they want to do it. And this is what our process looked like. And this is one that I recommend because it really does bring all the elements into it. So first of all, there's going to be a request for something. It's got to be scheduled, right? There's going to have to be some research done. I'm sure a number of you have experts on your staff. Needs to be written. Needs to be reviewed sometimes, usually by the boss, whoever's name is on it. That person is either going to say, nope, you didn't make the first cut. It's going to go back to the writer, complete the circle. Or ta-da, yes, we have liftoff. In which case it's going to be edited and finally published. Okay, now in 2012, publishing is not the end of it. Publishing just gets it out into the market. Sometimes you do not know what your content needs are going to be until you get your ideas out into the market and people begin to interact with them and begin to mold them and begin to shape them. Okay? And so a lot of the time you're going to find what those are. You're going to have people commenting on your blogs. You're going to have people posting on your Facebook page. You're going to have people sending you emails. You need to be paying attention to that. Your content strategist needs to be paying attention to that and listening and understanding and then redeveloping your content to meet those needs. Okay, so this is our website. Another tool that we used is called a page template. And the reason that we did that is that one of the sections on our site, if you go, has a bio for everybody on our team. We did not have one person who could write that bio. Every single one of us had to write our own bio. And that can be a mess, okay? So what we wanted every person's bio to sound like one person had written it. So we created a page template. And this is what it looked like. So every single one of us had to go in and fill this out exactly. We had a sort of a boundary on which we could be creative and show some creativity, but basically this is what we had to do. And I'm going to tell you it was a relief. I was able to get mine done in 10 minutes, which if you read my bio, you can probably tell I did it in 10 minutes. But I was able to get it done in about 10 minutes, so it wasn't a huge burden to me. Everybody else did the same thing, and all of our bios read the same. And so this is what one of them looks like. That's Chad. He's our CEO. He's my boss. He's here this week. You should talk to him. And this is his bio. And it's got all the same sections in it as everybody else's bio does. And it's consistent and it's accurate. Another concept, very important concept I want to introduce you to. This is really, really important for allocating resources. And this comes from Coca-Cola. They have a huge content strategy, content marketing initiative going on right now. And all I want you to remember is the 70-20-10 rule. Okay? And what it says is that 70% of your content should be low risk, bread and butter, pays the rent. All right? Should take about 50% of your time and resources. 20% needs to innovate off of what works. Engage more deeply with a specific audience from that 70% and consume about 25% of your time and resources. The final 10% is high-risk content. Brand new ideas, and these are the things that will become tomorrow's 70 and 20. Okay? For the people that are working on that 10%, which should take about 25% of your time and resources, it needs to be okay to fail. It really does. And you're going to learn from it. All right, the last step is now we've produced all of this. We've got it out there. It's in the marketplace. We're interacting with it. We're updating it. We're changing it. We're dynamic. How are we going to keep it fresh? Okay? You track, measure using analytics. Add when you need to. Update. Update is my favorite. Don't you love when you go to a website and you see that you can sign up for an event that expired 6 months ago? Do any of you have any events on your website that expired 6 months ago? Good, good. That's very good to know. So when that happens, you need to remove it. Okay? Give your old, outdated content a proper burial. There is nothing more annoying than having to wade through pages and pages of content on a site that sounds like it was written 3 or 4 years ago and that doesn't have any relevance. It will keep people from getting to the content that you have that is for them now. So get rid of it. All right, so how are we going to stay on track with all of this? Final tool I'm recommending to you is a communications calendar. Again, this is just a really basic thing. What we do with this, we keep it in Google Docs, we give our clients access to it, we go in and we work on it collaboratively with them. Right? So what we can do is we can set up our content focus for maybe a week or for a quarter, and there's a place for us to lay out our strategies for social publishing, our advertising campaigns, and it becomes a very organic, growing effort between ourselves and our client. But most important, it keeps us on track. It keeps those weeks and weeks from going by when you say, oh man, I was planning on getting to the website this week, but I just didn't do it. Okay, so this keeps it in front and center. All right, this point in the presentation, this is your choice. Okay? Hope you're going to take the second one. So let me give you 4 ways that you can get started this week doing that. First of all, let's get back to remember your content's an asset. It's a valuable asset. So add it to your budget. Even if it's just a little bit to get started, add it to your budget. Okay, and then somebody has to own this. You have to rid yourself of the notion that this can be someone's sort of job that they're doing in addition to 4 or 5 other things that they're doing. It really can't be, not if you're going to be successful, not in 2012. Focus is the key to success with this, and the person does need to focus. Set some realistic goals. This is not all going to get done next week, but you might get one thing done next week. So I'm going to recommend that you pick 2 or 3 top priorities. Maybe the 2 sections of your site or 3 sections of your site that get the most traffic. Or maybe it's your donation section. Or maybe if you have a broadcast, it's your broadcast section. Pick one and focus on it. You'll get to the others later. The sense of success you will get from really making 1 or 2 sections fantastic is going to be what spurs you on. And then start with what you can do. Now, I'm going to recommend you start with a content inventory. Have any of you ever inventoried the content on your site? Oh, my hero. Awesome.
Actually, for my master's degree.
Oh, okay.
But I did it.
Okay. Now, if you have a really large website, you probably don't need to go in and do every single thing. And then there are tools that you can get that can do that for you. But really, if you've got a medium-sized website, go in and look at every page on your site and catalog it. Just that one thing is going to be an encouragement to you, and it's going to give you the momentum to continue. So that would be my recommendation. But really, you can start with just about any of the tools. The persona would be another fantastic one to start with, talking about your users. Okay. the next thing I want to do is I want to now do some. I want to do some application. I want to do some interaction. Maybe take some questions. Chad is going to be passing out some papers. So what I want us to do now as a group, or maybe get into groups of 2 or 3, and pick a site to work on. So it may be the worst site you've ever seen. It may be a great site that you've seen. So let's see. Do you want to do this as a large group, or you want to get in small groups? I'm going to let you guys decide, and then I'll start giving you instructions.
Large group, we're too tired. It's too
Okay, fine. All right, well, we've got to pick a site then. Any,
I think we should consider doing Faith Village.
do you know, you just had a wicked grin on your face, and I just wasn't sure if I was going to let you talk or not, just based on the look on your face.
Yeah.
No, we're going to spend some time doing a persona. Is there a site out there that you guys go to, maybe in the faith-based world, that you just think, oh my goodness?
I go to Bible Gateway, but I don't know if I really need.
There we go. Critique it.
Anything?
I go
Okay.
to Bible Gateway a lot as well.
Okay, I've heard Bible Gateway. What else? Bible Gateway has been thrown out. What else has been thrown out? Faith Village? What else? Let's get 3 and then we'll decide. We'll vote. 3 or 4. Oh, thank you. Awesome. I was going to, right up there. Okay, so we have Bible Gateway. Can I write on this? Okay. This isn't a permanent marker, is it? Okay.
Did you tell she used to be a teacher?
Bible Gateway, Faith Village. Give me 2 more, and then we'll vote, okay?
What about a publisher like Zondervan?
Okay. One more.
Saddleback Church.
Ooh, beautiful. All right, we're going to vote. Let me get it written here. All right, how many votes for Bible Gateway? Raise your hand. Up high, I can't count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. How many for Faith Village? Hands up high, 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 high. 1, 2, 3, 4. How many for Zondervan? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And how many for Saddleback? 1, 2. All right, Bible Gateway it is. Everybody go to Bible Gateway.
Which is actually owned by Zondervan.
Yeah.
All right, now I'm reminding you, remember this is what a persona is. Okay, so taking a look at this, let's come up with a persona for one person that is going to be a heavy user of Bible Gateway. Start throwing out some,
Pastor.
pardon?
A youth pastor.
Okay. Anybody else have any other ideas? Otherwise, we're just going to take that one. Okay, youth pastor. Okay, first most important thing is we're going to give this person a name. What's his name?
Trip.
What?
Trip.
Trip?
Trip. I know a youth pastor named Trip.
What's his last name?
Doster.
All right. That is so perfect. I cannot even tell you.
Why is that everything like
Oh my goodness, what were his parents thinking? Okay, Trip Doster. If you got your, I see all of you have your devices open. Maybe go to Google Images and search for an image that might look like someone like Trip Doster. You don't have to show it, but it's kind of fun. So see if you can find what he looks like, all right? Okay. All right, is Trip single or married?
Married.
How many kids? Just shoot things out, otherwise she's going to get to tell me everything about him.
Maybe one.
One toddler.
All right, 1 toddler. How long has he been working at his church?
5 years.
5 years? What education does he have?
BA in youth ministry?
Pardon?
A BA in youth ministry.
BA in youth ministry.
Biola.
Of course. Okay. What are some of the things that Tripp wants out of life?
Spread the gospel.
What else?
Survive summer camp.
Yes, he does. Very good.
Wrangle volunteers.
Yeah.
What?
More volunteers.
He needs more, so that's going to be a frustration. He needs more volunteers, right?
Communicate with the kids.
Oh man, today's day and age, yeah, how to communicate with kids, right?
Get the kids interested in the Bible.
Very nice. Okay, think he's cool. And that's probably true also. Okay, communicate the Bible. What keeps him up at night?
The baby.
Who said that? Oh, mwah. Oh my goodness. What does he do for fun?
Video game.
Okay. What else? I'm seeing somebody who maybe gets out on his bike a lot. Tanned, maybe. He runs the Ironman triathlon.
Golf.
Golf?
Frisbee golf.
golf.
Oh, yes. I was like, someone named Tripp plays golf? I don't think so. What does he do? He plays something. You guys told me to play something.
Disc golf.
Oh, he plays video games.
Acoustic guitar. Not well.
What color is his hair? What color is his hair?
He's losing it.
Whatever color it is, he spikes it.
Okay, any tats? Got some tats, maybe?
He's in Southern California.
All right. Okay, do we have a picture of him now in our minds? Let's see what we're missing up here. There we got the attributes. What's his basic attitude? How does he feel about things?
Fun-loving, optimistic.
Okay. What's his reputation in his church, in his community?
Unorganized.
Got to write that one down. Whoop. Oh, poor Tripp.
More of a visionary. Gets people excited.
Okay, so he's a little bit of a high flyer, not so tactical, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Passionate.
Passionate, yeah, good. What's his faith focus?
The kids.
Okay. All right, now here's an important one. I want you to kind of write this down now that we've got this, or put somewhere maybe on that sheet that I gave you. What are some of the keywords that he might use to search for information? Or if not the keywords, where will he go for information? If he's got a question, he needs to know how to do something, he wants to know how to reach a kid, he's going to go online.
He would go to trusted youth ministry sources.
Which would be?
Well, Jonathan something or other.
.com.
Specialties used to be.
Because see, this is where, if this is your website, where the rubber meets the road. Okay, you have a picture of him now. You know who he is. You know also he probably doesn't have a whole lot of patience, right? He probably puts a lot of store in what other people are saying, and what other people consider to be important, right?
He's also searching for visual images.
I think it's a YouTube guy.
Okay, so you're now the owner of Bible Gateway. Why doesn't everybody go to the Bible Gateway site? Is there anything on that homepage that screams, Tripp, stay here and explore. I have things for you.
And Zondervan actually owns youth specialties now, so they do have a whole line of products, and they own Bible Gateway, and they don't.
Okay, so suppose now you're the owner of this site and you know that one of your key users is someone like Tripp. How are you going to change? How are you going to think about your content differently? What are you going to change about the homepage of your site that's going to let Tripp know that there is stuff there for him?
Faces.
Why that? Why did you say that?
Something visually that it can attract them to youth, something young.
Okay, because this demographic is very visually oriented, aren't they? Now, I haven't been to the Bible Gateway site in a while. Is there anything very much visual on there?
No, very minimal.
We have started adding ads.
That's definitely not a website for Trip, is it? No, 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 no.
But you can follow them on Google Plus.
Oh, yes. The great wasteland of social media, the ghost town, Google+. The place where everybody has an address, but nobody stays, right?
It's interesting to me, like, and a lot of organizations are, like, you can sign up for the verse of the day, you can sign up for this new devotion that they're doing. And those always strike me as things that it's the old architecture, it's the me pushing things at
Yes.
you, whether you want
Yes.
it or not. It's not that,
Yes.
like, what you're suggesting is finding what that person is looking for.
Right.
Yeah, it's sort of the old.
It's got a clean design, but it's old school.
Yeah.
It's very much, I think you're right, it's an old school website. I don't see Trip staying there for very long.
They're pushing hard copies of books rather than digital.
Ah.
Unrelated to the version of the Bible that you're looking at currently. On the right-hand side, if you're looking at it with defaults NIV, you're pushing NLT versions of the Bible,
Right.
which is irrelevant. If it is relevant to Trip, it's completely irrelevant because it's
Right.
not only not digital, but it's the wrong translation. So.
It's a fantastic observation. And you know, I think those of us that are a little bit older, that are digital immigrants, have to continually be changing our mindset back to exactly what he's saying. Not making those kinds of assumptions that because that was true of our generation, that it's going to be true of them. It's like for me, if I was coming back to Biola and I was still expecting and walking around the campus as if everything was the way that it was when I was here, I would be lost really quickly. Or I would be in some empty room over there when I thought I was supposed to be in the bookstore, okay, because the bookstore's changed. Or I would be over in that Rose building looking for books when the library is now a completely new building. So we have to change our mindsets, definitely. That's a great observation. Okay, let's see here. Let's scoot on and do one or two more things, and then that's persona. Wait a second here. Scenario planning. Would this be valuable to take Trip through this, or should we skip it and maybe go on to the audience model next? It's pretty basic, but if it would be fun, let's do it. If not, I think maybe talking about the audience model might be a little bit better use of our time. But I am willing to be influenced by your opinion.
Well, we could look at it as if he's at Bible Gateway, he's trying to put together a Bible study on a particular topic.
Okay, let's take a few minutes and do that. That's really good. Okay, so he has been asked to lead a Bible study tomorrow at the last minute. Trip has.
On the Hunger Games.
On the Hunger Games. Beautiful. That's right. So what is his state of mind? Because the Bible study starts at 9 o'clock in the morning and he doesn't usually roll out of bed till 10. So what's he feeling right now?
Has he read the book? Free. Watch the movie.
Right. Where are the Cliff Notes?
Right.
Google. That's right. Wikipedia.
Games. What do you plan?
Right, exactly. So he's probably thinking, how can I come up to speed on this pretty fast?
Yeah.
All right? What else might he be thinking?
I need some visual aids.
I need some visual aids. I need some Bible verses that relate to that. So that might be what would take him to Bible Gateway. He thinks, oh, wait a minute. Can't just be about the book. I got to connect it to the Bible, right? BibleGateway.com, types it in. What does he need at that moment?
To think of a scripture word he's going to look for. Survival?
We might click on topical index,
Oh, okay.
maybe, which isn't very common.
So let's click on Topical Index. Is that easy to use? If he goes there, is he going to find anything?
That's pretty good.
Probably not.
It's just biblical topics is all. It's not necessarily going to relate to.
So they don't have crossover to.
See, and if I'm Trip at that point, I'm going to panic, and I'm going to type the word hunger, and I'm going to start scrolling through every single verse that might have anything to do with hunger. What is that?
It's words I've never seen before.
It's that.
Vocabulary.
So who is going to write Bible Gateway and tell them that we have picked apart their site today? Okay? So the probability, now let's think about this if we're Bible Gateway. The probability of somebody coming to our site with a last-minute need for a scripture reference is actually going to be high, I think. Not just Trip, but there are probably a lot of people. You know, maybe they've gotten some bad news. Maybe they've got somebody in front of them who wants to hear the gospel for the first time. And they're like, oh my goodness. What can I share with them? Because of course when you're in that kind of situation, you don't remember all the Bible verses you memorized as a kid, right? So Bible Gateway has got to make it easy for people to quickly find information about felt needs, okay? Felt needs is the key there. Good, very good. That's a nice scenario. Anybody have a second one they want to try before we go on? Okay, let's go on to the audience model. Even if we don't get all the way through this one, this is an important one. Let me pull up. I'm going to scoot ahead here. Messaging hierarchy is self-explanatory. Okay, that was the last one. So let's go back to the audience model. Okay, so here we're getting away from the persona and we're getting into maybe a larger group of people, okay, a demographic. So let's, maybe now for Bible Gateway, and you can say this isn't a good idea, maybe instead of Trip now we have got pastors. So one of the large groups that Bible Gateway needs to engage with is pastors. Yeah, I know. My boss is telling me I got 10 minutes left, okay? All right, so if you are Bible Gateway, what are your goals going to be if a pastor comes to your site? What do you want them to do? And remember, you got to get revenue, right?
Stay there long enough to see the ads.
That's right.
And maybe find a resource that links you to something that is an ad generating hop for you, or revenue
link them to a
generating
book to buy.
Right.
Because if you are the website owner, your website does not stay in business unless you make money. So it's going to come for either sales, generally for ministries, or donations. Okay, so with Johnny and Friends, they are primarily supported by donations. If you're the owner of Bible Gateway, though, you need eyes on your ads. So that's going to be your goal. So is there maybe a little bit of inherent conflict there between that goal and the goal of equipping pastors? Okay, just keep that in your mind for a minute. Okay, so the pastors are coming. What might be some of the pastors' goals when they come? We already talked a little bit about it, but just shoot out a couple other things.
Sermon preparation.
Oh yeah, that's a good one. In fact, let's key on that for just a minute, okay? In fact, that'll keep it pretty simple. So we've got the website's goal of needing to fund itself, right? We've got the pastor's goal of needing to prepare for a sermon. So now what we need to think through is how do we marry those goals? How do we keep them from being at war with each other? Ideas? I'll just shoot out one. Maybe one of the things that you do is offer free resources for pastors. And maybe the ads on the side are resources that they could purchase and have for their digital library. Maybe Kindle editions of commentaries on the subject that they search for. Would be one way of doing it. That would be an honorable way of doing it. It's not sneaky. And it allows both parties to achieve their goals.
Sermon illustrations too.
Mm-hmm.
They're always looking for good illustration.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that could be a free resource, again, monetized on the side with advertisements of related items. Another way of keeping it from being too much tension is if you're offering resources for sale, offer a range of prices. So maybe there'll be some things that you could download for just $5 or $6, or you could buy the book or the hard copy if you want, bound, nice edition for more money.
What about newsletters? What do you think about newsletters?
What kind? What do you mean?
Like, let's say pastor searching for sermon resources and sign up for a weekly newsletter.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, that would like name acquisition, right? Yeah. Again, that would be a goal of the website often is name acquisition. Newsletters are a great way of doing that. And again, the value then becomes if you provide content in that newsletter that's going to help that pastor do his job, preach better sermons, reach his congregation. It's a win-win.
Biola University offers a variety of biblically centered degree programs, ranging from business to ministry to the arts and sciences. Visit biola.edu to find out how Biola could make a difference in your life.